So what have we learned already in this short space of time? We've heard from Mark that he wants to be the best organisation, full stop. We've heard from Natasha about how to face everything and rise. And we've just heard this challenge from Andrew to be this beacon of good practice. So we've got some work to do. Sorry, you've got some work to do. But I'm here to help if you need me. But these are lofty ambitions indeed, but you can do it. Yeah, I think we can do it. So let's get the right slide. I am thrilled about this next bit because some things that inspire us and really motivate us to think about where we are going and what we've done is to hear the stories from other people. And I am thrilled, that we have someone very special in our midst, in the guise of the lovely Heather Caudle. And Judith Fairweather is going to do her Oprah Winfrey impression. And we're going to have a conversation with Heather just about her journey and what she's learned and to share some of her fantastic insights. So let's welcome them both to the stage.
Hi, thank you. Whilst I'm going to have a conversation with Heather, at some point I'm going to include you all in that conversation. So, hi Heather.
Hello.
Tell me a bit about your personal journey and the choices that you have, the early choices that you've made that has led you to where you are today.
Okay. Well, my journey, I suppose, starts with my birthday on the 17th of December, 1970, Sagittarius. And I suppose today begins really from the point of where I decided to work for a living and started off life as a teacher in Trinidad, where I was born and I grew up. And I was in a seaside village in Matlock. Those of you from Trinidad who know that place behind the Northern Range. And whilst there, I met quite a number of interesting people. And being a rural village, the children who were in the school had quite a free life. But sadly, one of my students had a psychotic breakdown, and I used to visit him. And it was whilst there, I suppose, I came across the secondary gains of care. Mm-hmm. I felt good looking after him. And that made me want to go into the caring profession. And my grandmother breathed a sigh of relief because she was a nurse in Trinidad. One of her granddaughters followed in her footsteps. And I suppose that's where it all started. I was going to do my nurse training in Trinidad, but a really, really close friend of mine said, no, my auntie went to England and she had a great time going to England. I said, all right then. And I did. As a fiancée, I was married, and the plan was to go back, but that plan never happened. So here I am today, and I'm now married to someone who is a citizen of this country, so I'm here to stay with two boys. And I think that's my journey really, and the choices I've made are pretty much what I just said. I loved looking after people. I found I was good at doing it. I set off on an adventure. I still think I'm on an adventure, and my career is one that I get joy from.
Heather was the Director of Nursing at Ashford and St Peter's, and she's now just taken up, I think, 2 weeks into the role, a position within Jane Cummins' office as a Director of Nursing for Improvement for NHS England. So how do you feel about that move?
Well, I'm pretty excited about that move. Some people, a bit about my history as a qualified nurse. I started off life as a baby nurse in mental health. So I'm a registered mental health nurse. I'm not dual trained. And, I suppose I am dual trained, but my other training is as a psychotherapist. So I was a subject matter expert, not just in mental health, but in a very niche part of mental health, eating disorders, and a very niche part of that, working with families and women who wanted to have babies as anorexics, and people who had substance misuse as part of their list of morbidities. So very, very specialized and very niche. And I suppose whilst doing that, I got the opportunity to spread my wings a bit, which came in the form of needing to merge services with another. And that's when I realized, there was life outside of research projects and publications and force feeding and all the rest. And that's when I thought I wanted to do something completely different. And so just fast forward a little bit, where that led me to was actually from mental health trusts to an acute trust, North Middlesex Hospital, where I worked with the medical director there as the assistant director of patient safety. So that was my first foot into general health as a provider organization. And whilst I was there, I was headhunted to be the associate director of quality at Ashford and St. Peter's. And whilst there, and being there for about 3 years, then became the chief nurse for a subsequent 3 years. So quite unusually, I think what you have before you is someone who's gone from mental health to general health at a senior level. And I think I'm one of the few chief nurses, or was one of the few chief nurses in the country with a mental health background to be an executive nurse director in an acute trust, general health.
Lovely, thanks Heather. So tell me, who are your major influences within your career? Who have been?
Okay, well, I can name 3 people. The first person is someone called Adele Wakeham, and she was my manager at the Eating Disorders Unit in Royal Free Hospital. And she was a Kiwi, half Maori, half British descent. And the reason why she was an influencer is because she had impeccable taste in clothes. And she just, she rocked her womanhood in her leadership. She wasn't the type of leader who aped sort of alpha male characteristics. It was a very respectful, oozing with class, lovely shoes, but very much delivering on everything that you asked her to do. And I thought, yeah.
Look at your shoes.
Yeah, okay. Toned it down for today. And the other person is Professor Stanley Okolo, who was a medical director at North Middlesex. And I could remember the first day that he made an impression. When he was walking round the hospital with me, everyone, all right, chief, all right, chief, all right, chief. Clinical, porter staff, everyone, hospital, catering services, ambulance staff, everyone knew him. And he was like, all right. And he would stop. It took us about, 30 minutes to do a 5-minute walk because he stopped to talk to everyone. And I thought, that is visible leadership. That was really impactful. And I would like to be like that if I were to be a leader. And then the third person I would say is my last boss, Suzanne Rankin, who's the chief exec of Ashford and St. Peter's. So Suzanne was lovingly called the blonde bombshell. She had blonde hair, tiny lady. And again, she was from the Navy, so from a military background, but didn't overpower you with the sense of her position in the organization. And what she taught me was about deliverability. If you want to do something, understand the nature of the task, decide what the milestones of delivery are, and then deliver it. And be very clear with the person who's commissioned the work or who's asked you to do the piece of work, whether you're on track, whether you're off track, and what you're going to do to correct it. So I suppose the image, the feeling, the impact, and also the technical aspects of leadership, those 3 individuals taught me.
Thank you. So I'm going to push it a little bit here.
Okay.
So tell me about a time when your resilience was truly tested.
Okay. Well, I can say that it was last year and the year before that when my mother was very unwell, and she's now passed away 22nd of March from she had cancer. And she was the mother of 8 children, so I'm the 6th child of 8 children. And as you do in the Caribbean, and you have 8 children, and you're a professional woman, you're a teacher, what she did quite eloquently and quite effortlessly was be a matriarch and treat every one of us quite individually. So when she passed, I just lacked all that I needed to have in terms of resilience and needing to get up in the morning. I did. It was robotic, and you have to do it because that's what you need to do. And very quickly I learned, do I enjoy this anymore? Is this what I want to do in life? And being a chief nurse in a very busy district general hospital is tough, and the last couple of winters were very trying. And I thought, I'm doing really well here, but, sorry, Andrew's in the audience, so Chatham House rules. Do they really know what's happening at the front line? And I can make a difference. And so there was a sense of, and I think that was me really mustering all that I had inside to combat, which was an emptiness when my mum died. And so the resilience ebbed away from me, because whereas I need to have a spring in my step, I need to be positive, I need to feel the environment, that wasn't there. And what I put back into me in terms of that sense of purpose was creating a problem that I thought I was going to fix. So slightly psychotic, I must add, but it got me out, it got me there, and it married my sense of bravery and daringness, and I answered the call to apply for this job nationally, and I've been successful.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that personal story. Tell me, what's your vision for health equality?
Oh, God. That everyone has it. Everyone has a vision. I don't know if people have the same vision about health equality. I don't think everyone has the same vision. But I think my hope is that everyone wants everyone to be the best that they can be. And I think sometimes, Sharon put up a graph of the brain and talked a bit about the physiology of pain. But the physiology of anxiety and stress is that you become siloed, you become a bit myopic, you only see in front of you, and therefore lots of us only see our circle. And I think that goes in health as well. You see people, you are concerned about people who look like you, who talk like you, who are related to you. And you step into an us and them culture. And my vision for health is that people break that, and it's hard because it's getting more difficult now. And so we are forced into a position of being quite self-preserving. But the more we are self-preserving is the less we break up the opportunity of scale. And if we learn to be generous to someone who's different because they need it, then that will help us. So my vision for equality is that we all have it and we all want it for each other.
Thank you. Now we've done all the talking. Can we get some lights? Has anybody got any questions out in the audience? Please, this is an opportunity for you all to ask Heather some questions.
One of the big things that I'm looking at is authenticity, creating authentic leaders who then act as inspiring role models for organisations. So when in your career did you feel you'd reached the point where you could be your authentic self?
Okay, good question. Did you have anything to do with that question? Yes, I do. It's interesting, authenticity, because I would say one of the qualities, and I'm glad the lights are on because I can be a bit more interactive. Hands up if you have lived in Trinidad or you know anyone from Trinidad. Hands up if you've heard the term liming. Right, okay. So when you're liming, you're hanging out. And when you're hanging out, you have to feel comfortable. And when you are liming, you want to have a good time. So I am a Trini, I'm a limer. And that's been one of my qualities in the workplace. But the thing with liming is if you have somebody who's liming with you and they're not themselves, they end up buying all the drinks. They end up doing stuff away from the group. You don't want them in your space. And I think whenever I've entered into a workplace, I need to feel myself and I need to really connect with the authenticity. And from the fact that I'm able to be myself, how I talk. But I can remember when I first came to this country, I don't know, I had a sort of patra, long braids. I don't know if people in the audience know. And I had bright colors. And I wore that for quite a long time until people who, friends in college, they were saying, well, you're kind of bright today and it's December. And I suppose, and I thought that was really funny. But she was sort of giving me a hint, just tone it down a little bit. But she said that with love for me and wanted me to do well. So I read that even though I was different, there was someone who was willing to be in my corner. So I think a mixture of just wanting to be comfortable in the workplace in order to perform was always there. And the point that I reached where I needed to, I will answer that question a different way, where I thought authenticity was threatened was actually when I became more senior. And sometimes, and this might be risky, but it's okay to wear the loud colors and be yourself. But sometimes leadership is about when someone takes a quick scan, you have the qualities of a leader, right? And so, paradoxically, the qualities of a leader, by just looking, I wouldn't have it. But how I stand, how I talk, how I look you in the eye. And I learned this. I bought a book on the behaviors in Western society. I kid you not. And because I wanted to connect with others in a way that they were able to find out who I was. And sometimes when you do things in a way that the vast majority of people who aren't kind, they will turn off and you would lose a lot of people. So I think there were times when there was a threat of my authenticity when I tried to fit in too much. But having grown up in the Caribbean, I think I was always, that authenticity was a lifeline, if that makes sense.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here.
Oh, hello.
I was just wondering, do you have any plans to join the BME network in your current organisation? And what kind of qualities and what kind of ideas do you think you'll be bringing to that network if you do join it?
I don't think I have a choice, because I don't know if you know Yvonne Coghill. Yvonne, yeah. So Yvonne has anointed me as one of her babies, and she's in NHS England. So if I don't join the BME network in NHS England, I think I'll have to answer to her. I have been in BME networks before, and if I'm very honest with you, they weren't like the networks that Natasha talked about. And I didn't stay very long. Because it was about the authentic thing. I mean, back in Trinidad, we didn't, if I found myself in a space where people were bringing an energy that was negative and talking about how badly they were, and it was an homogenous group, it didn't feel right. Whereas I think a network that's about feeling, that's about that the unifying quality is your emotion, then anybody can be part of that network. And it's about how we integrate. So if I've not been to the BME network in NHS England, but if it is anything like what I think your network is like, yes, I will be joining it. And I think the value I'll add is my experience to that collective voice and the collective vision.
Hello. As an inspiring leader, I always think it's really important to bring others with you who wish to be in that position. What sort of things what sort of tips would you give to others who you work with to encourage them to move up the ladder?
Okay, so I'll give you, I'll share some anecdotes, some examples. So as the chief nurse, one of my portfolios is chaplaincy. And when I was recruiting for the lead chaplain, there was a young man who was interviewed along with a couple of others who didn't get through. And she'd shared with me that he'd been to about 30 interviews. He was of Jamaican descent, educated in Oxford, and was really quite down. And I saw some qualities that I thought, if only he just nipped them, it'll be good. It wasn't part of my job. In fact, I used to meet him outside of work, but after the interview I said, I will meet you for 5 sessions mentoring. Long story short, he's now employed in one of the major trusts in the southeast. A healthcare assistant who used to be a pharmacist. When I went on my chief nurse day saying how wonderful healthcare assistants are, she came up to me afterwards and said, I'm a pharmacist, would you mind mentoring me? I said, yeah, no problem. She's now, after a few tries, now a pharmacist after being a healthcare assistant. I believe that you pull people up. The person who is now the chief nurse of Ashford and St. Peter's, I worked with in a previous trust. I wasn't part of the interview panel, but when I knew I was leaving, I called her up and I said, this is your job, just get yourself prepared and get ready to apply. And she is also someone from a BME background. I will also share with you another story. A gentleman who was at deputy level, who was looking for executive positions, and he kept saying to me, you know, can you help me, can you help me? And I was like, yes, no problem. And all I will say is there was so much I could have done. He's still searching. But do what you can. You meet people halfway. If they want to, they will get there. And recognize what value you can add to their bag of skills. Quickly, as a leader, you'll recognize when people want you to do it all for them, and have the belief that they'll clock on and think that's not how it is. So don't give up on them, but don't waste, I was going to say don't waste your time. Not don't waste your time, but recognize the limitations of your resilience. But yes, I do bring people up, I think.
Hi, Heather.
Hello.
Coming from a BEM background, what obstacles and barriers have you faced to where you are today?
I'm sure there have been barriers, but I haven't recognized them based on my ethnicity. I'll tell you a couple of things that people have said when I've gone for jobs. One bit of feedback for a job that I went for and didn't get was that I wasn't nursey enough. Didn't understand what that meant. He's still an HC and I'm a VSM, so there you go. But what I will say is the bigger obstacle is my gender. Sometimes when I go into rooms, you know, I feel you feel the testosterone, you feel the maleness and having to break through that. So I have felt the protected characteristic of my gender more than I have my ethnicity, I have to say, because I think if it was there, it was too subtle for me to pick up.
I am a BME staff, obviously, myself, and I work in the NELCSU. You mentioned that you used to wear colours, and I don't see so much colours on you now, and you've said that you didn't face discrimination based on your race. But people here, or I'm speaking on behalf of myself, I've found discrimination just by my race, just by working in NELCSU. If you've sailed past it, I think my question's a bit irrelevant, to say the least. But I would have said, how would you go about changing, what steps would you put in NELCSU in order to help BME staff not face certain obstacles? And is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yes. Okay, so this might sound as though I told a lie just now, but this is an anecdote about offices, okay? And you might relate to this, but in NHS England, it's sharing desks, right? It's hot desking. And Jane Cummings has recently she's taken over Anne Rainsbury's job as the DCO for London. So she's moved downstairs to the 5th floor, and her office on the 6th floor is free. I'm the corporate nurse who's based in London, so I'm there most days. Walked in one day, and there are these two gentlemen in my office, and I said, oh, hello. And they were like, hello. I said, who are you? I said, this is my office. And they knew it was my office, but yet they tried it on. It might have been for a variety of reasons, and I stood my ground, and then their PA came up and asked me, do you mind going to another office? I said, no, I've got a call in 20 minutes. So what I will say that anecdote is about is, I knew that they were trying it on, that how dare, well, I guessed, I don't know for sure, but I guessed that they were trying it on. But in terms of what I will say to NEL CSU is fill your mind with energy that's less about the problems of racism. And what I will say is, if you make a decision tomorrow to invite someone who shares no characteristic with you at all back to where you hang out, either your favorite club, to a barbecue next summer that you're holding in your house, you have to start somewhere. So that if you make the decision tomorrow, go up to them, make friends with them, with the view to know more about them. Because I think that way you are filling your head with possibilities of what can, not what can't. And I will say, I did not know what the rules were, what the nuances of exclusion were. And therefore I sailed past it. And sometimes, as well-intentioned as they are, people telling you about how racist behaviors might be, your brain doesn't decipher and think, no. Your brain thinks, oh, that's where I need to be. And so if you ignore it and fill your brain with possibilities, I think that would help. So mixing with someone who is different to you and giving them an opportunity to see you as well. I hope that didn't sound too fluffy.
I was going to say, let's give Heather a clap, but we've all done that. Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. The session was called Be Inspired, and I think we've all been inspired by what the sage and wisdom from Heather today. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Now, let's give another. Wonderful.